Hi guys, this video is going to be covering TES5EDIT. I'm going to be showing you how to install it and how to use it to clean your mod files. Now this video is aimed more at mod makers than mod users because this is something that basically most mod makers should try and do. That doesn't mean mod users shouldn't be aware of what is going on here, and if you are curious you can watch this video and you can experiment yourself, but I'd be very careful about doing that. It's one thing for a mod author to clean his own mods, it's a completely other thing for you to go and blanket clean all the mods for them. If you think a mod needs cleaning, tell the mod author what you think the problem is and let them do it. It's usually a better idea, plus it also helps fix it for everyone else as well. So before I go into what on earth I'm talking about with mod cleaning, let's actually install TES5EDIT. Now it is now hosted on Skyrim Nexus. I'll put the link down below, and it isn't a mod, it's a tool, so you will download this manually. Now it's a fairly small file and it comes as a 7Z archive. I'm going to extract it here onto my desktop just for now, and once it's done I will delete the archive file. Now inside this folder you will find a few files as follows. This is the one you want. Now believe it or not, you can run this from here. It doesn't matter where you run this program from at all. But just for the sake of neatness, basically what I'm going to do is cut it and I'm going to put it in my Skyrim folder. I like it to be there. Keeps everything in one place, but you can actually place it wherever you want. It makes very little difference. And then what I'm actually going to do is send to desktop create shortcut to create a shortcut to this so I can run it. I'm also going to rename this shortcut, get rid of all the .exe and etc. And I'm placing it here with my other Skyrim modding things. If you're wondering what this is a desktop tool called Fences, which is very useful if you do a lot of work on your desktop. Okay, so we're ready to start TES5EDIT now. Before we do, some people are getting an error, if I'm reading this correctly. Fatal, could not open registry key, and then it gives you a registry key. If you are getting that error when you run this program, it just means your Skyrim is not registered with your system. This is not a problem with TES5EDIT, it's actually a problem with your system. All games and programs are registered with your Windows operating system, and so everything else knows where to find them. In actual fact, you can have something installed on your system without it being registered. So it'll run just fine, your Skyrim will run just fine, but nothing can find it. Nothing knows about it. If you are getting this, it's very easy to fix. Go along to your Skyrim folder and run Skyrim Launcher. This is the way the game normally runs. So you get this little window. This will fix the registry problem. It should sort out your registry, add Skyrim to it, and you can click exit. If you're getting this error, you're probably running another way. You're probably running the game another way, and maybe you've copied your game from a different place, different computer. Not sure, but anyway, dead easy to fix, so just do that. And so we were going to run TES5EDIT, and the first thing it's going to do, it's going to ask you for your master plugin selection, and it defaults to everything that you have in your load order normally. For some reason in 3.0.23 I'm getting Skyrim ESM unchecked, so I'm going to check it again. In actual fact it doesn't matter because TES5EDIT will force that to be loaded because some of these other files require it. And they are explicitly dependent upon Skyrim.esm. I will explain that in a second. And then I click OK. And then the program will start loading. And this can take some time. So it will give you a full report. Now, one of the great things about TES5EDIT and all of these programs for all of the different games, for example, Fallout 3 Edit, FNV Edit, etc., is that if there is a problem with your load order, a missing master or two files are in the wrong order, and you're getting crash on startup, if you start this program, it will stop when it finds that error. It will refuse to load beyond that point. And so, for example, if Convenient Horses was incorrectly placed in your load order in a place that would cause it to crash on startup, this program will stop right there and will tell you this file has failed to load such and such a master, and it will tell you what is missing. So it's an invaluable tool for finding out why your system is crashing. But there you go, it's now finished loading, so my load order's fine. Now, what did I mean about explicit master before? If I open up, I'm going to pick, say, I'll pick my own mod, iHood, and go to the file headers. You can see master files, and this master file, Skyrim.esm, is in its list of master files. This means iHood.esp requires Skyrim.esm. It is an explicit dependency. Now, this will mean that if Skyrim ESM was missing, for example, it would cause all sorts of, well, it would cause it to crash on startup. I'm trying to think, do I have anything here that might have multiples? Here we go. This one's got the UFO Dawn Guard add-on requires Skyrim Update ESM and Dawn Guard ESM. So, for example, if I was running the UFO Dawn Guard add-on but had not got Dawn Guard installed, my load order would crash on startup because of this missing master. This is explicitly required. Now, you can actually have mods that are implicitly required, and what this means is the mod in question requires, it sort of depends on something that's being done in another mod, but it is not actually, it's not stating that in its master file list. So it is possible to load that mod even though you don't have something that is required. These are the sort of things that are usually stated in the mod's description, and the mod author will say you must have mod A installed. So you should read those. Those are the implicit dependencies. Okay, so we've got the program installed, we have got it working. Now we're going to use it to clean our mods. And I'm going to use my own mod iHood as an example because it's fairly small and easy to show. And I'm just going to load this up in the creation kit, if I can find it. iHood set as active file. And I'm going to show you something called the dirty edit. Now, dirty edits can be one of two things. The first type of dirty edit is caused by the creation kit itself. The creation kit will change something that it didn't need to change and store it in your mod. And believe it or not, it does this. I think it's a bug. I'm fairly sure it's a bug, but it does happen. So it's nice to be able to clean those. The second type of dirty edit are a little bit more common, and they are mistakes made by the mod author. And it can be many things, and the bigger the mod, the more likely the mod is to have dirty edits. And so, for example, it could be just something along, let's say I'm iHood. What iHood does is it changes the heads-up display, makes it disappear at certain times, and one of the things that it does is it responds to whatever weapon you are using. And perhaps while I was playing around with iHood, maybe I was creating, doing some tests, and maybe I went along to one of the Daedric weapons, the Daedric sword, and I made some changes to it, just for testing purposes. Let's say I made the damage 140. I can't think why I would do that, but this is the sort of thing you do when you're messing around with mods. You try a few things, you test some things out. Maybe I added some flag to it, and then I clicked OK and I saved it. So I save it. And then I finish my test and I go back to the sword and say, right, okay, I'm going to change it back to how it was, back to damage 14. So now everything's back to normal, right? And I hit save. Unfortunately, yeah, everything seems to be back to normal, but it is not in fact the case. What I will now do is open up TES5EDIT, but this time I'm going to right click and select none and just select iHood. And what this will do is it will load just iHood and any of its explicit dependencies. If your mod has implicit dependencies, you might want to load those as well, although for this it possibly isn't all that important. However, it's a good practice to do so. But I have no implicit dependencies, just an explicit one, Skyrim.esm, which will get loaded as you'll see. Okay, so let's have a look at iHood. As you can see, not a huge mod. We've got global variables and we've got quests. In fact, the vast majority of iHood comes in the form of scripts, and those scripts come as resources outside of the ESP, but they are tied into the game via the quest. And the quests use these global variables to pass. Oh, look. Okay, I'm going to talk about that in a second. They use these global variables to pass values back and forward between the scripts and have an effect on the heads-up display. But you can now see I also have an entry in weapon. This is my dirty edit. This here is my dirty edit. And what this means is if you look at this, this is what it's like in Skyrim.esm, and these are the changes made by iHood. And even though, as you can see, because everything's green, that means everything is identical except, I believe this, unused. Right, so this is an unused value, so it doesn't matter if this has changed. But it's identical. It's completely the same. And yet I have an entry for it because I edited it. Now, what does this mean? Well, it doesn't change anything, so your first thought might be, oh, well, there's no harm. Well, this is what happens if you have a mod that changes the Daedric Sword. Well, if you have a mod that changes the Daedric Sword and it comes after iHood, nothing, no problem. But if you have a mod that changes the Daedric Sword and iHood comes after it, iHood will delete any changes that mod made, which means your mod, well, iHood, my mod, suddenly would conflict with anything that changed that weapon, which is ridiculous because iHood has nothing to do with weapons whatsoever. Therefore, this is not needed. Now, the simple way to fix this is to right-click it and remove. This doesn't remove the Daedric Sword from the game, it removes the entry in iHood. So I remove this. Yes, I'm absolutely sure. And it's gone. No more reference to the weapon. In actual fact, I can remove this grouping. There's no need to have this grouping whatsoever. I have now cleaned the dirty edit. Now, obviously doing this manually for a mod this size is pretty easy, but if you are running a huge mod, if your mod is some massive overhaul with thousands of records, that could be a very time-consuming process that you are just not willing to do. Don't worry about it. This tool has a nice little feature for you. If you right-click on the ESP file's name and apply filter for cleaning, depending on the size of your mod, that will take a little time. You will then see it has highlighted iHood as needing some cleaning, weapon, and basically the entire weapon group and this weapon have been flagged as ready to be cleaned. And you go right-click again and hit remove identical to master records. Yes, I'm absolutely sure. And as you can see, it's removed them. iHood has now been cleaned. I may as well, while I am here, this here is, I have basically added a global by mistake with no name. Probably trying to add a global, something went wrong with the clicking, the window disappeared, and then I've re-added it and given it a proper name. This is never used. I know this is never used, but this is not a dirty edit. It is not. It is not something I have changed from a previous master. It is just simply a mistake. In fact, it's a type of wild edit. I believe is what the TES5EDIT people call it. I will be covering those in another video. Sticking to dirty edits for this video, but I can actually right click and remove this because I know it is not needed. So I've cleaned it even more. So now my iHUD.esp has been cleaned, and I then just click the red X, OK, and off it goes. Now I am going to show you one other thing before we finish this video, and that is the deleted references problem. This is where you'll go along, you will do something like you'll decide an object shouldn't be there, so you'll delete it from the world, and you think everything's fine and you think there's no problem, so you save and you're done. The problem there is if another mod comes along and uses that item, references that item, all sorts of fun can happen. It's a prime cause of crashing when you exit the game, but it's just generally something that's to be avoided. I've seen all sorts of problems in previous games. In fact, I've caused problems myself where I've deleted items from a room, and another mod has actually, well, they did it properly. They disabled the items and moved them away, and my mod caused a massive, horrible crash whenever you entered that room. And that was basically because two mods trying to do the same thing. Mine was trying to delete the object, and theirs was trying to disable it. They were doing it the correct way, so I had to clean my mod up. So if I load up TES5EDIT now with iHUD, and we'll see what we can see. Okay, so in a cell, as you can see, we now have the deer removed. This is telling us we've removed the deer, which, as I've said, is a bad idea. So what we're going to do here is we're first of all going to apply filter for cleaning, and it identifies we have a problem right there. And then I'm going to right click and undelete and disable references. And this is on the whole mod. And now what you can see is it's changed this. So instead of deleting the item, it has disabled it initially. This will mean when you go to that spot, that item will not be there. It is the same as deleting it. It will not be there, but my mod will not cause any problems with any other mod that references that object or tries to do anything to that object. This is a much safer way of doing things. So this is something that's well worth doing to your mods rather than deleting game objects from the game, especially ones in vanilla. Because there are a lot of mods that might access those. This is the way to do it. Now, this problem usually occurs on things like containers. You remove a container and then another mod adds an item to said container. That's a lot more likely than the dead deer, but you get the concept. So this is definitely something you should do to your mods as well. Make sure that where possible, when you're doing it, don't delete items. Move them, disable them. You can flag it in the creation kit as disabled. But if you've not, and if you've got tens of thousands of these things, or you don't like doing it in the creation kit because it's easier to delete, just use this tool to find those items and get them set as disabled instead. Much, much safer. Okay, now this video is only scratching the surface. I mean, I haven't even covered things like wild edits, and really the TES5EDIT tool is going to be something that you should really use, not just for its automated things, for its ability to clean your files automatically, but you should actually use it, open it up, look at all the references. Even if you've got a big mod, look at all the references you've changed and ask yourself, did I mean to do that? Did I do that correctly? It gives you a lot more power than the creation kit. It certainly is not a replacement for the creation kit. It is something you will use in tandem, but it will help you clean up your mods, perhaps make your mod more stable, less prone to problems, and just generally be a little neater inside, which is always good because a neat mod is an easier mod to maintain. But this tool is not a sort of magic bullet. The cleaning up of dirty edits and deleted references is something that I recommend in 99.9% of cases. But there are cases when you might want to ignore that. In the case of what we call the dirty edit, where you have a record that's identical to the master, you may have done that deliberately. Theoretically, if you've got a mod that requires, say, something be the vanilla value, and you know that a lot of other mods change this value, so part of your mod is you change that value explicitly back to a vanilla amount, and then insist that your mod comes last, you don't want to clean that record up, even though it is identical to the Skyrim.esm master, because what you're saying there is you don't care what else happens, that value must be whatever it is for your mod to work. So you have to use your brain on this. You're going to have to think about this, but I would suggest that scenario I have just described should be extraordinarily rare, and in fact I would suggest there are better ways to achieve that type of effect. I think it would be better to do that via some type of script that changes the value later on, if possible, of course. Okay guys, I hope that helped, and good luck cleaning your mods.